Thank you, Haesung, for that. Now we're going to turn to our Oh Jung-hee, who is at the National Election Commission. This is where they're going to be keeping track of voter turnout throughout the entirety of the day. So, Jung-hee, how are the numbers looking so far this morning?
Good morning, Mark. It's been a bit more than 4 hours since polls opened, but it seems the turnout is a bit low so far. And that's most likely because many voters have already cast their ballots during the early voting period last week. The turnout at 9 a.m. was 9.4%, almost 2% lower than for the previous election in 2012. There are roughly 42.4 million people registered to vote this year, which is up 5% from 2012, and so far nearly 4 million have cast their ballots. Although turnout is a bit low at the moment, it's expected to pick up in the afternoon, especially after 1 p.m. when the tallies from the early voting and overseas voting periods will be incorporated into the total. It's also worth noting that these early warning turnout figures aren't likely to be a good indicator of the final turnout, as the National Election Commission is predicting that figure could exceed 80%. Voters have become much more proactive about politics this election after the massive corruption scandal that led to the impeachment of the president. According to a recent survey by the National Election Commission, roughly 87% of eligible voters responded that they will vote. On top of that, the high turnout rate of over 26% during the two-day early voting period last week could provide a push to the remaining voters. Also, the polls will be open 2 hours longer this year than they were for the previous election, which could also push up turnout in the end. There are almost 14,000 polling stations nationwide, and they're open until 8 p.m. After that, the ballot boxes will be transported to the 251 counting centers around the country. The vote counting will begin at 8:30 p.m., and the early results could start coming in at about 10 p.m. That's all from me from now. Back to you, Mark.